The stars were infinite, cold, and uncaring. Among them moved the Zarketh Dominion, an empire that had conquered 200 worlds across the galaxy. Their warships were massive, their weapons devastating, and their purpose simple: find new worlds, take their resources, eliminate anyone who resisted. On the bridge of the flagship Eternal Judgment, War Commander Thelzar studied the holographic display before him. A small blue planet rotated slowly in the projection. The third planet from a yellow star. Unremarkable in almost every way. Target analysis complete, Commander, his tactical officer reported. The officer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as data scrolled across his vision. The inhabitants call their world Earth. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level is primitive. They achieved nuclear fission only 200 of their years ago. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light travel. Thelzar's mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. Perfect. Another easy conquest. Prepare the fleet for standard bombardment protocol. We strike their population centers first. Break their will to fight before they can organize resistance. Commander, they do have weapons in orbit around their planet. Primitive satellites in a small station with lifeforms aboard. Destroy them first, Thelzar ordered. I want them to know they are helpless. 50 Zarketh warships moved into position around Earth. Each vessel was 3 kilometers long, armed with kinetic cannons that could level cities and energy weapons that could boil oceans. Against such power, the humans had nothing. The attack began without warning. The International Space Station exploded in a flash of light and metal. The astronauts aboard never knew what hit them. Communication satellites disintegrated next. Then the bombardment of Earth itself began. Kinetic rounds fell from the sky like the fist of an angry god. In New York, the first impact vaporized Manhattan in an instant. The shockwave flattened buildings for miles around. In Beijing, the ancient city disappeared in fire and dust. Mumbai, São Paulo, London, Tokyo. One by one, the great cities of Earth turned into craters of molten glass. The death toll was unimaginable. In the first hour alone, 2 billion human beings ceased to exist. Panic spread across the planet faster than the destruction. In emergency bunkers deep underground, world leaders watched their civilization burn on flickering screens. Military commanders shouted orders into radios, trying to coordinate a defense against an enemy they could barely see. Fighter jets scrambled from air bases that still existed. They climbed as high as their engines would take them and fired missiles at the massive shapes in orbit. The missiles exploded harmlessly against Zarketh shields. The jets were swatted from the sky by point defense lasers. Then came the broadcast. Every television, every radio, every device on Earth capable of receiving a signal suddenly displayed the same message. The image showed Thelzar on his bridge, his alien features terrible and incomprehensible to human eyes. Primitive creatures of Earth? His voice echoed through translation software. Your world now belongs to the Zarketh Dominion. You have 2 choices. Surrender completely and become slaves of the Empire, or refuse and face total extinction. You have one of your hours to decide. The transmission ended. In the Situation Room beneath the White House, the President of the United States sat frozen at the table. Around her, military advisors argued in desperate voices. Similar scenes played out in bunkers in Moscow, Beijing, London, Paris, Delhi, and dozens of other locations. We have to surrender, one general said, his voice hollow. We have no way to fight back. This is genocide. If we surrender, we're slaves, another argued. Is that better than death? The president looked to her military advisor, a 4-star general with gray hair and hard eyes. What are our options? Tell me the truth. The general took a deep breath. Madam President, we can't reach them with conventional weapons. Our fighters can't get high enough. Our missiles don't have the power to breach their shields. He paused. But we do have weapons that might work. What weapons? Our nuclear arsenal, ma'am. The ICBMs. If we launch everything we have, the sheer number of warheads might overwhelm their defenses. Some will get through. The advisor slammed her hand on the table. That's insane. The electromagnetic pulse alone will destroy what's left of our infrastructure. The radiation will poison the atmosphere. We'll create a nuclear winter. Billions more will die. The general's face was stone. They're already killing billions. If we surrender, we're finished as a species. If we launch, maybe we take enough of them with us that they decide Earth isn't worth the cost. The president closed her eyes. In 1 hour, She had to make a choice that would determine the fate of humanity: surrender and hope for mercy from creatures who had shown none, or launch a counterattack that might doom what remained of civilization. She thought of her children, her grandchildren. She thought of every human being who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. She thought of the billions who had already died, who deserved to be avenged. "How long to prepare for launch?" she asked quietly. "We can begin the sequence immediately. Russia, China, France, the UK, India, Pakistan. I've been in contact with their commands. They're all asking the same questions. If we coordinate, we can put 6,000 nuclear warheads into orbit within 30 minutes. 6,000 nuclear weapons. Humanity's doomsday arsenal. The weapons they had built during the Cold War to destroy themselves. Now they would be used against an enemy from the stars." The president opened her eyes. They were hard as diamonds. "Send the authorization codes. Contact our allies. Tell them we will not surrender. Tell them we launch in 20 minutes. Around the planet, the decision was made in bunker after bunker. The humans would not go quietly into extinction. In North Dakota, massive silo doors opened for the first time in decades. Minuteman missiles prepared for launch. In the Pacific Ocean, submarines rose to launch depth. In Russia, the dead hand system activated automatically, designed to ensure retaliation even if command was destroyed. In China, mobile launch platforms rolled out from hidden bases. The Zarketh detected the activity immediately. "Commander, we're reading massive energy signatures across the planet's surface," the tactical officer reported, confusion in his voice. "They're opening thousands of missile silos. They're preparing to launch." Thelzar's mandibles spread in what passed for a laugh among his species. "The fools. Do they think their primitive rockets can harm us? Let them launch. We'll destroy every missile before it reaches us. It will break their spirits completely." But something in the officer's voice made him pause. "Commander, these aren't conventional missiles. Energy readings suggest nuclear fission warheads. Hundreds of them. Thousands." Thelzar stopped laughing. "They're going to irradiate their own planet?" "Apparently so, Commander." For the first time since arriving at Earth, Thelzar felt something he had not experienced in many years of conquest: uncertainty. What kind of species would poison their own world rather than surrender? What kind of beings would choose suicide over submission? On Earth, the final seconds counted down. Launch officers turned their keys simultaneously. Computers verified authentication codes. Deep underground engines ignited. The president watched the countdown on her screen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Across Earth, fire and thunder rose toward the stars. The counterattack had begun. The missiles rose like angry fireflies, thousands of them, their trails cutting white lines through the smoke-filled sky. From every corner of Earth they launched. American Minutemen, Russian Tupples, Chinese Dongfengs, British Tridents, French M51s, Indian Agnes, Pakistani Ghauris. Every nation that possessed nuclear weapons sent them skyward. On the bridge of the Eternal Judgment, Thelzar watched the display with growing alarm. "How many?" he demanded. 6,342 missiles detected, Commander," the tactical officer replied, his voice tight. "Multiple warheads per missile. Total yield approximately 50,000 megatons. Impossible. No species would do this to their own world. Commander, impact in 90 seconds. Recommend we activate full shields and begin point defense." Thelzar's claws gripped his command chair. "All ships, maximum shields. Engage every defensive system. Destroy those missiles." The Zarketh fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, each one capable of vaporizing a city block. Point defense systems tracked and destroyed hundreds of incoming missiles. They exploded in brilliant flashes, their nuclear fire contained by the vacuum of space. But there were too many. For every 10 missiles destroyed, one got through. Then 2, then 5. The humans had built their doomsday weapons with one purpose: to overwhelm any defense through sheer numbers. The first nuclear warhead struck the shields of a Zarketh cruiser. The shield held, but barely. The ship rocked from the blast. Then another warhead hit. Then 3 more. The shield collapsed. The next warhead struck the hull directly. The cruiser exploded in a miniature sun. "Ship down," someone screamed across the command network. The humans destroyed the carrier relentless. More missiles found their targets. Another ship lost shields and took a direct hit. Its reactor went critical, adding its own explosion to the chaos. A third ship, damaged by multiple near misses, began to list as its engines failed. Thelzar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His fleet was taking casualties from primitives who didn't even have space travel. "All ships, retreat to higher orbit. Get beyond the range of their weapons." But the humans had planned for that too. Submarine-launched missiles had longer range and higher trajectories. They arced through the atmosphere and detonated even farther from Earth. The Zarketh fleet found no safety. "Commander, we've lost 3 ships completely. 7 more are damaged. 2 of those are combat ineffective. How many missiles remaining?" "They've launched everything, Commander. But the damage is done." Thelzar looked at the planet below. The blue marble was now covered in expanding clouds of dust and smoke. Fires burned across entire continents. The electromagnetic pulses from the nuclear detonations had destroyed what remained of the human infrastructure. Cities that had survived the initial bombardment were now dark and silent. "They poisoned their own world," he whispered. "They would rather die than surrender." A communication came through from one of his sub-commanders. "War Commander, we're detecting unusual radio signals from the planet's surface. It appears to be directed at us." "Put it through." Static filled the bridge, then a human voice spoke. The translation software struggled with the words, but the meaning was clear. "Attention, Zarketh fleet. This is what we do to ourselves when we disagree. Imagine what we'll do to you. You wanted Earth? Come down and take it. We'll be waiting in the radiation and the darkness. We've been preparing to end the world for 80 years. If we can't have it, neither can you. Welcome to Earth." The transmission repeated in dozens of languages: Chinese, Russian, Arabic, Spanish, each one carrying the same message of defiance and spite. Thelzar's tactical officer spoke quietly. "Commander, recommend we withdraw to regroup. We need to repair damaged ships and reassess the situation." For the first time in his military career, Thelzar considered retreat. The humans had cost him 10% of his fleet. His mission was to conquer Earth, not destroy it completely. But what was left to conquer? The planet below was dying. Its atmosphere was poisoned. Its cities were ruins, and yet the humans had not surrendered. "All ships withdraw to the outer system," Thelzar ordered. "Maintain defensive posture. I need to contact Dominion Command." The Zarketh fleet pulled back, moving beyond the range of any remaining human weapons. They left behind the wreckage of their own ships, the debris floating in orbit alongside the remains of human satellites and space stations. On Earth, in bunkers deep underground, humans watched the alien ships retreat. There was no celebration. The cost had been too high. Nuclear winter was setting in. Radiation levels were lethal across vast areas. The electromagnetic pulses had destroyed power grids, computers, and communication systems. Billions were already dead. Billions more would die in the coming months from starvation, disease, and radiation sickness. But they had hurt the enemy. They had proven that humanity would not die quietly. The president stood in the situation room, looking at the reports coming in from around the world. The news was uniformly terrible, but she stood straight, her face composed. "Get me a status report on all military assets that survived," she ordered. "I want to know what we have left. Food supplies, medicine, fuel, everything." An aide looked at her in confusion. "Madam President, with respect, what does it matter? The aliens will return with more ships. We can't launch another strike like that. We used everything we had." She turned to face him. "Then we'll build more. We'll dig deeper. We'll adapt. We'll survive. And when they come back, we'll be ready. But how? The world is ending." "The world ended the moment they attacked us," she said coldly. "Now we're in a new world. A world at war. A world where humanity fights for survival. We've done it before. We'll do it again." In another bunker in Russia, similar conversations were happening. In China, engineers were already being organized to begin rebuilding military infrastructure underground. In India, scientists were being tasked with studying the alien technology from the destroyed ships. Humanity had been knocked to the ground, bloodied and broken. But they were getting back up. 3 days after the battle, Thelzar received his orders from Dominion Command. The message was clear. Earth was too valuable to abandon. The planet had water, minerals, and a strategic location. The human resistance would be crushed. A larger fleet was being assembled. 500 ships, enough to turn the entire planet into molten slag if necessary. Thelzar acknowledged the orders, but something bothered him. He accessed the data from the battle, studying the human tactics. The missiles had been well coordinated. The timing perfect. The targeting efficient. These weren't the actions of a panicking species. They were the actions of beings who had planned for exactly this scenario. He pulled up files on human history. What he read disturbed him more than anything he had seen in the battle. The humans had spent centuries fighting each other, developing weapons specifically designed to exterminate their own species, creating doctrines like mutually assured destruction. They had lived for decades under the threat of nuclear annihilation, and somehow they had thought that was normal. What kind of species evolved under such conditions? What kind of psychology did that create? Thelzar realized with cold certainty that the Dominion had made a mistake. They had attacked during peacetime. They had united humanity against a common enemy, and they had underestimated how dangerous a species could be when it had nothing left to lose. On Earth, in thousands of bunkers and shelters, humans worked through the darkness. They salvaged what they could. They buried their dead. They rationed their food. They treated the radiation sick. They did what humans had always done when faced with extinction. They survived and they prepared for round 2. The aliens would return. Everyone knew it. But next time humanity would be ready. Next time they would have more than just nuclear missiles. In a secret laboratory beneath the ruins of Los Alamos, scientists examined fragments of the destroyed Zarketh ships. The technology was advanced beyond anything humans had created. But it was technology nonetheless. And if something was built, it could be understood. If it could be understood, it could be copied. And if it could be copied, it could be weaponized. The war had only just begun. 6 months had passed since the first attack. Earth was dying slowly. Nuclear winter had dropped global temperatures by 15 degrees. Crops failed worldwide. The sky was perpetually gray with ash and dust. Radiation zones covered 30% of the planet's surface. 2 billion survivors struggled to stay alive in underground cities and reinforced bunkers. But humanity was not idle. In a facility carved into the mountains of Colorado, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a holographic projection of alien technology. Pieces of the destroyed Zarketh ships had been recovered from orbit by brave pilots in experimental spacecraft. Those fragments now represented humanity's best hope for survival. "It's remarkable," she said, pointing to the energy core of a Zarketh fighter. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, but it's standardized. Every ship uses the same power systems, the same shields, the same weapons. It makes their fleet efficient and easy to maintain." General Martinez stood beside her, his face haggard from months of stress. "Can we copy it?" "Copy? No, we don't understand half of the physics involved. But adapt? Yes, we can make it work through trial and error. We've already had success with their shield generators. We don't know exactly how they create the energy field, but we can activate them and maintain them. How long until we can put them on our own ships? We have 6 prototype fighters with functional shields right now. Crude, unstable, and they drain power faster than our reactors can supply. But they work." Martinez allowed himself a small smile. 6 is better than 0. "What about weapons?" Dr. Chen switched the projection to show a long barrel weapon. "This is their plasma cannon. We've managed to fire it twice. The first time it exploded and killed 3 technicians. The second time it worked. We melted a hole through 6 feet of steel. And the faster-than-light drive." She hesitated. "That's more complicated. We think we understand the basic principle. They fold space somehow, creating a bubble that moves faster than light. Our version is held together with prayers and duct tape, metaphorically speaking. But yes, we think we can build an FTL drive. It won't be reliable. It won't be safe. But it should work once or twice before breaking down." Martinez gripped her shoulder. "Doctor, I need you to work a miracle. We estimate the alien reinforcements will arrive in 2 weeks. We need to have something ready by then. Anything." She nodded. "We're working around the clock. Everyone is. Scientists from 50 nations are collaborating through quantum encrypted channels. We're sharing data, pooling resources. Humanity is united in a way it's never been before." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. In Siberia, Russian engineers tested railgun prototypes powered by alien energy cores. In what remained of China, factories built weapons day and night protected by miles of earth and rock. In India, mathematicians worked on complex calculations for orbital mechanics. Humanity was doing what it did best: adapting, innovating, weaponizing everything it could. 2 weeks later, the Zarketh returned. 500 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. War Commander Thelzar stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Absolute Dominion. This ship was twice the size of his previous command, with shields powerful enough to withstand a direct nuclear strike. "Scan the target planet," he ordered. "Commander, detecting unusual energy signatures in Earth orbit. Multiple objects, possibly weapons platforms. Count is 300 and rising." Thelzar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. 300? That's impossible. They couldn't have built that many platforms in 6 months. "Confirmed, Commander. They appear to be satellites modified with weapons. Primitive railguns and what might be nuclear mines. They've also deployed debris fields, making approach vectors hazardous." "They've been busy," Thelzar admitted grudgingly. "Very well. Standoff bombardment protocols. We'll destroy the platforms from extreme range, then move in to finish the planet." The fleet advanced cautiously. When they entered maximum weapons range, they opened fire on the orbital defenses. The platforms exploded one by one. But for every platform destroyed, sensors detected more launching from Earth's surface. "They're replacing them as fast as we destroy them," the tactical officer reported. "Then we destroy faster. All ships. Continuous fire." The battle for Earth orbit had begun. Deep underground in the command center at Colorado, General Martinez watched the battle unfold on tactical displays. "They're taking the bait. Keep launching the decoy platforms. Make them waste ammunition." A technician spoke up. "Sir, we have the real weapons ready. 30 ships, all volunteers. They understand this is likely a one-way trip." Martinez closed his eyes briefly. 30 ships, built in 6 months from salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity. Each one was a patchwork of different systems, held together by the skill and determination of their engineers. No two ships were identical. They carried a variety of weapons, from modified nuclear missiles to experimental plasma cannons. Some had alien shields. Others relied on thick armor plating. They were humanity's counterattack. "Launch when ready," Martinez ordered. God help them all. The 30 ships rose from hidden launch sites across the planet. They were ugly compared to the sleek Zarketh warships. They looked like they'd been assembled in someone's garage, which wasn't far from the truth. But they flew, and they had weapons, and they had crews willing to die for their species. The lead ship was the Defiant, commanded by Captain James Rodriguez. He'd been an Air Force pilot before the war. Now he commanded humanity's first true warship. His crew was 12 people. Engineers, gunners, a navigator who'd been a graduate student 2 years ago. None of them had trained for this. They'd learned on the job. "All ships, this is Defiant," Rodriguez broadcast. "Stay in loose formation. Don't try to match vectors. Stay unpredictable. Use every trick we practiced. Make them work for every shot." The human fleet accelerated toward the alien Armada at speeds that would have been impossible 6 months ago. The Zarketh detected them immediately. "Commander, we have incoming craft. 30 vessels. They're small, but they're fast. And they're using our FTL technology." Thelzar leaned forward in his command chair. "So they learned from the wreckage. Impressive. But 30 ships against 500? Destroy them." The Zarketh fleet turned to face the human attack. Energy weapons locked on, but the human ships didn't fly in neat formations. They scattered, each one taking a different vector. They spun and dodged like fighters, even though they were as large as corvettes. The first energy beam missed the Defiant by meters. Rodriguez felt the heat through the hull. "Return fire! All weapons." The human ships opened up with everything they had. Plasma bolts, railgun rounds, missiles, even modified nuclear warheads on proximity fuses. It was chaos. There was no coordinated fire plan. Each ship attacked independently, using whatever weapons they had in whatever way seemed best at the moment. It was the exact opposite of Zarketh doctrine, and it worked. The aliens couldn't predict what the humans would do because the humans themselves didn't know. One ship would fire, break away, loop around, and fire again from a different angle. Another would launch missiles, then use its plasma cannon to detonate them early, creating shrapnel clouds. A third rammed a Zarketh cruiser at high speed, its captain knowing his shields wouldn't hold but hoping to damage the enemy before dying. The Defiant targeted a Zarketh destroyer. Rodriguez lined up his shot carefully. "Plasma cannon, full power, fire!" The weapon discharged with a sound like thunder. The bolt of superheated plasma crossed the distance in seconds, and struck the destroyer's shields. The shield held but flickered. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Fire again. Keep firing until it breaks. 3 more shots, 4. On the 5th, the shield collapsed. The 6th shot punched through the destroyer's hull and the ship began venting atmosphere. Target eliminated, his gunner shouted. But there were 500 enemy ships. The humans fought with courage and cunning, but they were outnumbered. The Vengeance took a direct hit and exploded. The Fury's engines failed and it drifted helplessly until energy beams cut it apart. The Retribution made a suicide run directly into a Zarketh cruiser, detonating its entire nuclear arsenal on impact. Both ships died in the explosion. One by one, the human ships fell, but they took enemies with them. By the time the battle ended, 7 Zarketh warships had been destroyed. 14 more were damaged. The humans had inflicted casualties far beyond their numbers. On the bridge of the Absolute Dominion, Thelzar studied the aftermath. His fleet had won. The human counterattack had been crushed, but the cost had been higher than expected. Commander, we've intercepted a transmission from the planet, his communications officer said. It's being broadcast in all directions. Play it. A human voice filled the bridge. This time there was no defiance, no threats. Just a simple statement of fact. This was 30 ships, built in 6 months, by a dying civilization, with technology we barely understand. Imagine what we'll have in a year. In 5 years, in 10, you started this war. We'll finish it. See you soon. Thelzar felt something cold settle in his chest. The humans had lost today, but they'd proven they could fight in space. They'd proven they could learn alien technology faster than anyone thought possible. They'd proven they wouldn't stop. The Zarketh fleet moved into bombardment position, but for the first time, Thelzar wondered if destroying Earth was even possible. Not physically. The fleet could turn the planet into a radioactive wasteland, but destroying the humans? The idea itself? That might be impossible. On Earth, Martinez watched his pilots die one by one. When the last ship vanished from his screen, he allowed himself one moment of grief. Then he pushed it aside. Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Launch the orbital mines, activate all remaining defense platforms, and get me a damage assessment on the enemy fleet. I want to know how much they're hurting. The war continued. Humanity had lost the battle, but they'd learned valuable lessons, and they'd bought time to build more ships, time to develop better weapons, time to become the predators instead of the prey. The meeting took place in the deepest bunker on Earth, beneath what had once been Geneva. Around the table sat representatives from every surviving nation. General Martinez stood at the head, his face grave. We're losing, he said bluntly. The Zarketh fleet is in orbit. They're bombarding population centers daily. We've lost another 500 million people in the last month. Our orbital defenses are depleted. We have maybe 2 weeks before they achieve complete dominance. The Russian general spoke up. We have more nuclear weapons. We can launch another mass attack and poison what's left of our atmosphere even more. We're already on the edge of extinction. Another nuclear exchange and the planet becomes uninhabitable. Then what do you suggest? The Chinese representative asked. Surrender? Martinez shook his head. The opposite. We take the war to them. Silence filled the room. Finally, someone spoke. That's suicide. We barely have a fleet, maybe 50 ships, and most of those are barely functional. Exactly. Which is why they won't expect it. The Zarketh think they've won. They think we're trapped on this dying planet, but we've been analyzing their communications. We know where their supply depots are. We know their patrol routes. We know where they're vulnerable. Dr. Chen stepped forward, activating a holographic star map. 3 light years from here is a Zarketh logistics station. It supplies their fleet with fuel, ammunition, and replacement parts. It's lightly defended because they never expected an attack this far from their core territory. If we destroy it, their fleet here at Earth will be crippled. The French representative laughed bitterly. This is madness. You want to send our only ships on an interstellar raid? What if they fail? What if they don't come back? Then we die, Martinez said quietly. But if we stay here, we die anyway. At least this way we hurt them. We show the galaxy that humanity doesn't just defend, we attack. We make them pay for every inch of space they take from us. The vote was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would launch its first interstellar raid. 50 ships prepared for departure. The fleet was a ragtag collection of vessels, each one different from the next. Some had alien FTL drives, Others used human-designed drives based on incomplete understanding of the technology. Some had shields. Others relied on armor. Some had plasma weapons. Others still used modified nuclear missiles. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Defiant, now repaired and upgraded after the previous battle. He looked at his crew. They were tired. They'd lost friends. They'd seen their world die by degrees. But their eyes were hard with determination. "All ships, this is Defiant," he broadcast. "We're going to make history today. We're going to be the first humans to attack an alien target in deep space. Remember what they did to Earth, remember everyone we've lost, and show them what happens when they pick a fight with humanity." The fleet engaged their FTL drives. Space twisted around them in ways that made no sense to human physics. Reality bent. And then they were moving faster than light, crossing distances that should have taken years in mere hours. They emerged from FTL near the logistics station. It was massive, a structure 10 kilometers across, bristling with fuel tanks and ammunition stores. 3 Zarketh patrol ships orbited it lazily. The station crew had no reason to expect trouble. "All ships, weapons free," Rodriguez ordered. "Hit them fast and hard." The human fleet attacked like a swarm of angry hornets. They came from all directions at once, no formation, no coordination beyond the basic objective of destroying the station. The Zarketh patrol ships tried to respond, but they were overwhelmed in seconds. The Defiant fired its plasma cannon at a fuel depot. The shot was perfect. The depot exploded, setting off a chain reaction. Fire blossomed in space, silent and beautiful and deadly. Other ships targeted ammunition stores, crew quarters, power generators. Some ships simply rammed the station at high speed, turning themselves into kinetic missiles. Within 10 minutes, the logistics station was the expanding cloud of debris. "All ships withdraw," Rodriguez ordered. Mission accomplished, but not all ships made it out. The Valiant's FTL drive failed and it was destroyed by the station's final automated defenses. The Courageous was damaged too badly to jump and its crew chose to stay behind, continuing to fire on the wreckage until their ammunition ran out and the Zarketh reinforcements arrived. 43 ships returned to Earth. The raid sent shockwaves through the Zarketh Dominion. How had humans, trapped on their dying planet, managed to attack a target 3 light-years away? How had they acquired FTL technology so quickly? Most importantly, where would they strike next? War Commander Thelzar received the news in his quarters. He read the report 3 times, unable to believe it. The humans had destroyed a station that supplied his entire fleet. Now he would have to divert ships to protect supply lines. He would have to split his forces. The humans had just changed the entire strategic situation. Over the next 2 months, human raids continued. A mining colony was hit, then a patrol base, then a repair facility. The raids were quick and brutal. The humans never stayed to fight a prolonged battle. They struck, caused maximum damage, and fled before reinforcements arrived. But it was their tactics that truly disturbed the Zarketh. The humans didn't fight with honor. They used tricks, ambushes, psychological warfare. They would broadcast messages before attacks, taunting the defenders. They would leave damaged ships as bait, then detonate them when rescue vessels approached. They would pretend to retreat, only to loop back and attack from a different angle. One human commander, Captain Lisa Zhang of the ship Retribution, became infamous across Zarketh space. Before every battle, she broadcast the same message: "We're already dead. Our planet is dying. We have nothing left to lose. The only question is how many of you we take with us." Her ship was destroyed eventually, rammed into a Zarketh supply convoy after running out of ammunition. But her words lived on. Other human captains adopted her message. It became a motto, a promise, a threat. The Zarketh began to fear engaging human ships, not because the humans were stronger, but because they fought like cornered animals, with a desperation that made them unpredictable and dangerous. Word spread to other species in the Dominion's territory. The Talvor, a reptilian species conquered 2 centuries ago, heard rumors about the humans, a species that refused to surrender, that adapted alien technology in months, that took the war to their enemies instead of cowering on their homeworld. The Talvor began to whisper among themselves. If the humans could resist, maybe others could too. The Kareth, an insectoid race enslaved by the Zarketh, passed information to human raiders through coded transmissions. They told the humans where to strike for maximum effect. They sabotaged Zarketh equipment, small acts of rebellion inspired by humanity's defiance. The Dominion found itself facing something it had never encountered before. Not just one rebellious species, but the idea of rebellion itself spreading like a virus. Back on Earth, General Martinez reviewed the results of the raids. The strategic situation had improved marginally. The Zarketh fleet in orbit was hampered by supply shortages. Their bombardment had decreased in frequency. Humanity had bought time. But intelligence reports brought new concerns. The Zarketh were consolidating their forces. They were pulling ships from across their empire, building a massive fleet with one purpose: to end the human threat permanently. 2,000 warships, the entire core battle fleet of the Dominion, enough firepower to sterilize Earth from orbit and ensure no human survived. When will they arrive? Martinez asked. 4 weeks, maybe 5, the intelligence officer replied. They're staging at their core worlds first, then they'll jump here in one massive fleet. Martinez looked at the ceiling as if he could see through the miles of rock and earth to the sky above. 4 weeks. In 4 weeks, the largest armada ever assembled would arrive to end humanity once and for all. What assets do we have? 170 operational warships. Another 50 under construction, but they won't be ready in time. Orbital defenses are rebuilt but limited. We have nuclear weapons, but not enough to stop a fleet that size. Then we need something else. Something they won't expect. Dr. Chen entered the room, her face pale. General, I think I have something. But it's dangerous, potentially catastrophic. Tell me. We've been studying zero-point energy from captured alien technology. It's the power source they use for everything. We think we can weaponize it. Create a device that destabilizes space-time itself. The problem is we've never tested it. The calculations suggest it will create a localized gravity well that will tear apart anything nearby. But it might also tear apart the space around Earth. It could destroy our planet as easily as theirs. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. How big is the effect radius? We estimate 10,000 kilometers. Maybe more, maybe less. We don't know. And if we detonate it near their fleet, it should destroy hundreds of ships. But General, there's a significant chance it could cause a cascading effect that damages Earth's orbit or tears apart the moon. We'd be gambling with the entire solar system. Martinez looked around the room at the faces of his staff. Tired faces, desperate faces, faces of people who knew they were already dying. Build it, he ordered. Build it and prepare to deploy it. If we're going to die anyway, let's take as many of them with us as possible. And who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky. Dr. Chen nodded and left to begin work on humanity's final weapon. 4 weeks. The clock was ticking. The largest battle in human history was coming. And humanity would meet it with the only thing they had left, the absolute refusal to surrender. The final preparations took every resource humanity had left. Earth transformed into a fortress of desperation. Orbital weapon platforms circled the planet in layers, each one armed with nuclear missiles, railguns, and captured alien weapons. The moon had been excavated in dozens of locations, turned into a massive artillery battery with railgun emplacements hidden in craters. Mars colonies contributed their manufacturing capacity, sending shipments of ammunition and spare parts on slow cargo vessels. Every human warship was recalled. The raiders came home from their missions across Zarketh space. 170 ships gathered near Earth, ready for the final stand. They formed a loose defensive sphere around the planet. No neat formations, just controlled chaos waiting to be unleashed. In the hidden facility beneath the Rockies, Dr. Chen worked without sleep for 3 weeks straight. The zero-point energy device was unlike anything humanity had ever built. It was 10 meters tall, covered in alien technology integrated with human engineering in ways that shouldn't work but did. Banks of capacitors stored enough energy to power a city for a year. All of it would be released in a single instant. Will it work? General Martinez asked, standing beside the weapon. Dr. Chen's hands shook from exhaustion. The calculations say yes. But we're working with physics we don't fully understand. It might tear a hole in space-time. It might create a miniature black hole. It might do nothing at all. We won't know until we detonate it. Can we deploy it near the moon without destroying the moon? We've calculated safe distances. If we position it correctly and the Zarketh fleet enters the kill zone, it should work. Should being the key word. Martinez put his hand on her shoulder. You've done everything possible. Whatever happens, humanity owes you a debt we can never repay. She smiled weakly. If this works, we won't need to repay anything. If it doesn't, there won't be anyone left to collect. The device was loaded onto the Defiant. Captain Rodriguez accepted the mission personally. "Seems fitting," he said. "First human ship to fight in space. Might as well be the last, too." 4 weeks passed. Then, on a gray morning that looked like every other morning on dying Earth, the sensors detected the arrival. 2,000 Zarketh warships emerged from FTL at the edge of the solar system. They came in waves, hundreds at a time, until the space around Earth's sun was filled with alien vessels. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in Zarketh history, an armada meant to end the human threat, once and for all. War Commander Thelzar stood on the bridge of the Absolute Dominion, now the flagship of the combined fleet. Around him were the supreme commanders of the Zarketh military. This was more than a battle. It was a statement to the entire galaxy. "The Dominion does not tolerate resistance. Scan the planet," Thelzar ordered. "Identify all defensive positions. Prepare for saturation bombardment. I want nothing left alive." "Commander, detecting human warships. 170 vessels. They're forming a defensive perimeter. 170 against 2,000. Thelzar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "They must know this is hopeless. Why do they even try?" No one answered. By now, everyone in the Zarketh military knew why. Because they were human, because surrender wasn't in their vocabulary, because they would rather die fighting than live as slaves. The Zarketh fleet advanced in perfect formation, thousands of ships moving as one, their coordination flawless. It was beautiful in its precision. The human fleet had no formation at all. Each ship moved independently, waiting for orders that might never come. Captains made their own decisions. Crews prepared for what they knew would be their final battle. General Martinez stood in the command center, surrounded by staff officers and technicians. Every screen showed the impossible odds. 2,000 to 170. There was no path to victory here. Only different ways to die. "Broadcast to all ships," he ordered. "Captains, you have operational freedom. Fight as you see fit. Make them work for every meter of space. Make them remember Earth. Make them remember humanity." Around the planet, captains received the message. There were no speeches. No inspirational words. Everyone knew what was at stake. Everyone knew they were going to die. They only cared about how many enemies they could take with them. "All ships," Rodriguez broadcast from the Defiant. "It's been an honor. See you on the other side." The Zarketh fleet entered weapons range. 2,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. Space filled with energy beams and kinetic rounds. It was like watching a star explode. The human defensive platforms fired back. Nuclear missiles streaked from orbital launchers. Railguns on the moon fired shells at relativistic speeds. The human warships scattered and attacked using every tactic they'd learned, every trick they'd developed. But there were too many enemies. The orbital platforms died first, overwhelmed by concentrated fire. Human ships fought desperately, but one by one they fell. The Vengeance 2 rammed a Zarketh cruiser at full speed. The Fury detonated its reactor in the middle of an enemy formation. The Retribution 2 made a suicide run carrying 5 nuclear warheads. The Zarketh lost ships too. Human weapons and tactics had improved over the months of warfare. But for every Zarketh ship destroyed, 10 more pressed the attack. Thelzar watched the battle with grim satisfaction. The humans were fighting well, but the outcome was inevitable. "All units advance. Prepare to begin planetary bombardment." That's when Rodriguez made his move. The Defiant had stayed back from the main battle, protecting its precious cargo. Now it accelerated toward the moon at maximum speed. Sensors tracked it immediately. "Commander, one human vessel is breaking from the battle. It's heading for the moon. Destroy it." Energy beams lanced toward the Defiant. Rodriguez threw his ship into a wild, evasive pattern. His shields held against the first hits. The second barrage brought them down to 50%. The third would kill them, but they were close enough. "Deploy the device," Rodriguez shouted. His crew pushed the zero-point weapon out of the cargo bay. It drifted in space near the moon, among the debris of destroyed platforms and ships. Rodriguez set a timer. 30 seconds, then his ship died. Multiple energy beams struck the Defiant simultaneously. The shields collapsed. The hull breached. The crew had time for one last breath before the vacuum claimed them. But the timer kept counting down. 20 seconds. The Zarketh fleet advanced, pushing through the remaining human defenders. They were winning. Victory was moments away. 15 seconds. On Earth, Martinez watched his last ships die. Tears ran down his face. They'd fought so hard, come so far, and it wasn't enough. 10 seconds. Thelzar's fleet moved into position around Earth. The planet was defenseless now. The bombardment would begin and humanity would finally end. 5 seconds. The zero-point device detonated. Space itself screamed. Reality tore. A sphere of twisted gravity expanded from the detonation point, 10,000 kilometers in diameter and growing. Everything inside that sphere was subjected to gravitational forces that should not exist. Space-time stretched and compressed simultaneously. Zarketh ships caught in the field were crushed instantly, their hulls crumpling like paper. Some were torn apart by tidal forces so strong that atoms separated from each other. Others simply vanished, perhaps into another dimension, perhaps into nothing at all. The sphere of distorted space expanded for 5 seconds. Then it collapsed back on itself, creating a gravitational shockwave that rippled through the battlefield. When the chaos cleared, 200 Zarketh ships were simply gone. 300 more were damaged or destroyed by the shockwave. The moon had shifted slightly in its orbit but remained intact. Earth's atmosphere was buffeted by gravitational waves but survived. The Zarketh fleet was in disarray. What was that? Someone screamed on the command network. What did they do? Thelzar stared at the tactical display in horror. A quarter of his fleet gone in an instant. The humans had weaponized something that shouldn't be possible. They'd created a bomb that could tear holes in reality itself. What kind of species builds weapons like that? On Earth, Martinez watched the results with savage satisfaction. All remaining ships attack now. Hit them while they're confused. The 60 human ships that survived rallied for one final attack. They were damaged and low on ammunition, but they weren't done yet. They tore into the disorganized Zarketh fleet with desperate fury. The battle raged for another hour, but the Zarketh had lost their advantage. Their perfect formations were broken. Their coordination shattered. They found themselves fighting the way humans fought. Chaotic, unpredictable, desperate. And in that kind of fight, the humans had more experience. More Zarketh ships died. The moon's railguns, still partially operational, fired their last ammunition. Earth's remaining orbital defenses detonated their nuclear payloads. The human ships fought until their weapons ran dry and their systems failed. Finally, Thelzar made the decision that would define the rest of his career. All ships retreat. Full withdrawal. Jump to Rally Point Alpha. Commander, we still outnumber them. We're fighting an enemy that just tore a hole in space to kill us. Withdraw now. The Zarketh fleet began jumping to FTL, abandoning the battlefield. They left behind 700 destroyed ships and the wreckage of their pride. On Earth, the last 30 human ships hung in orbit, victorious through sheer spite and the willingness to gamble with extinction itself. The war wasn't over. Both sides knew that. But something fundamental had changed. The Zarketh had attacked Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they'd lost nearly 1,000 ships and been forced to retreat by a species that barely understood space travel a year ago. General Martinez stood in the command center, watching the alien fleet disappear from sensors. Around him, his staff sat in stunned silence. They'd won. Somehow, impossibly, they'd won. News spread across Earth through the remaining communication networks. In bunkers and shelters, humans wept and cheered. They'd survived. They'd fought the largest empire in the known galaxy and forced them to retreat. 3 months later, Earth received its first contact from another alien species. The Talvor sent a message, broadcast on frequencies they knew humans could detect. We witnessed your battle. We saw your courage. We want to meet the species that made the Dominion flee. We want to discuss alliance. More messages came. The Kareth, the Velor, the Nim. Species from across the galaxy, some conquered by the Zarketh, others independent, all interested in the humans who'd done the impossible. Within a year, humanity had a seat at the Galactic Council, not as victims, not as primitives, but as warriors who'd earned respect through blood and defiance. The Zarketh Dominion never attacked Earth again. The cost had been too high, the risk too great. Instead, they sent ambassadors offering peace talks. Humanity accepted but kept building ships, kept improving weapons, kept preparing, because they'd learned a truth that would define their species for generations to come. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with species older and more powerful than humanity. But none of them were more stubborn. None of them were more willing to gamble everything on a single desperate throw. None of them had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to fight impossible odds. In council chambers across the galaxy, ambassadors learned to recognize when humans were in the room. They learned to respect the species from the small blue planet. They learned to fear the words that had become humanity's motto, spoken by Captain Zhang before her final battle. We're already dead. The question is how many of you we take with us. And the galaxy learned a new rule. Never corner a human. Never back them into a position where they have nothing left to lose. Because humans don't surrender. They don't accept defeat. They fight until their last breath. And they'll drag you down with them if that's what it takes to survive. Earth slowly recovered. The skies cleared. Radiation levels dropped. Cities were rebuilt, though in different places. 2 billion humans were gone, but 2 billion remained. And they told their children stories about the war. About the defiant. About the captains who fought impossible odds. About the day humanity looked at extinction and said no. The human race had paid a terrible price for survival. But they'd survived. And more than that, they'd proven themselves to the universe. They were here. They weren't going anywhere. And if you tried to destroy them, you'd better be ready for the fight of your life. Because humanity had spent its entire history preparing for this moment, even before they knew it was coming. Welcome to Earth. We've been expecting you.